Hey, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here on Sunday mornings live talking about the upcoming transits of the week. And then we do a quick tarot card and an angel spread for each sign. We start with the birthday month and work our way around the Zodiac. My Libra sun likes fairness, so I don't like to always start with Aries and end with Pisces. And speaking of Pisces, Pisces is such a strong energy in all of our charts right now. Pisces is the dissolver. Pisces is the opportunity to transcend the physical experience because there's an awareness of the eternity of the soul within. And as Neptune and Saturn have been dancing around each other since July of 2024, at least, we've had Neptune at 29 degrees of, and this is give or take, it was at 29 degrees, moved up into Aries and then backtracked. Good morning, 145 Club. I'm so good to see you. I don't know why they don't send notifications. Maybe I'm not, who knows what. But anyway, because this transit that's going on until the springtime, and that's when Saturn will separate a bit from Neptune, is really the background, the overhead music of all the other planets right now. And most of those planets are up in Capricorn. We've got Mercury at 15 degrees. We've got Mars at 20 degrees. We've got the Sun at 21 degrees. We've got Venus at 22 degrees. Tightly, Mars, the Sun, and Venus are making a square to Chiron. Chiron's making a square to Jupiter and has been, and Jupiter's opposing all of this. So this is a focal point, being Chiron, the wound of self. Jupiter in Cancer, for me, I thought about, my beliefs, my willingness to expand is in opposition to this stellium of planets, but it didn't resonate that way. It resonated sort of like the intuitive part of Cancer. Jupiter's the connection to the angelic realm. Jupiter rules religion, it rules prayer, and it rules intuition, on some level. It co-rules Pisces, it's exalted in Cancer, and the 9th house. So I think what's happening is that the stellium, Mercury, Mars, the Sun, and Venus, are all kind of putting in our face the rules, the regulations, the structures that we have been used to, that we have depended upon, the systems of government that have been put into play. And as I said that, I just saw a bus drive by in my head. So it's not just systems that help people that are in challenge, it's the systems of everyday life that we're used to. And yet there's the change. I don't know if you've all noticed since the beginning of the year, but the AI on the internet is like just so much more prevalent. And even when you see things, there's these disclaimers now. AI has been used in this show. So it's really kind of fascinating. So Chiron in Aries, the individual. Jupiter in Cancer, arguing with Chiron about, am I really trusting an inner knowing that is not resonating with what I'm hearing in the outside? What I'm hearing in that Capricorn energy, wherever that is in your chart. Welcome, Small Wildflowers. It's so good to see you this morning. Welcome, CC Pups and at Pica 42 . We also have Venus enter Aquarius this week on the 17th. And on that day, she will be coming into a conjunction with Pluto. So this to me feels like there's going to be some sort of disruption on the world stage about money, about maybe it's interest rates, maybe it's, the cost of doing business. We know the United States is in a wonderful opportunity for growth. And Mars will be conjunct Mercury at exactly 25 degrees of Capricorn. Mars being exalted in Capricorn. I was thinking about, how exaltation affects the planet, and how the strength, because it almost feels like a tug of war between Mercury, Mars, the Sun, and Venus, with Mars being exalted, and then Jupiter retrograding in exaltation. And it almost felt like Mars was overriding the intuitive part of the Jupiter energy. This will be how we should do it. And the Sun being, Mars in the ego and the sense of value and self-worth. And I also want to say this, as Venus moves, I'm kind of all over the place, apologize. As Venus moves into Aquarius, I think how I want to phrase this is that debt or future resources when it comes to money feels like it's going to be somehow on the world stage. I don't know. I'm not watching the news right now because it's a bit of it's too much for me, to be honest with you, between, Rob Reiner's son and the ice activity in Minnesota. I just feel like I want to hide in my house right now because everything feels a little scary. So I'm not watching a lot of the news, but I do think there's going to be something. This feels like interest rates, or it feels like the rates of messy is such a nice way to put it. It feels it's beyond messy. It feels downright crazy to me. I mean, literally, the choices that people are making for problem solving feel really weird. Hi, Pixie. Good to see you. So I want to offer this because, this is all hitting the cardinal signs with, this grand or this T square in the cardinals. But at the same time, an awareness of the shift is happening. Okay. The shift individually is happening. The shift outside of ourselves is happening. And this shift is creating the head of the zit. That's the way I want to put it. It's the head of the zit. And part of that is information coming through as well. I think that there is, however we're getting our information and however we're, the resources we're using, I think we're being called upon to be more discerning. And that's that square and that's that opposition. So Jupiter is, in this case, fighting to trust its intuition. That's the way it feels. Chiron in Aries is like, if I listen to myself, I'm going to feel like an outcast forever. I'm going to be by myself. I'm going to have to do it all for myself. And then Capricorn, the stellium, feels as it's saying, you could just surrender to the structure as it is, to how history's always been, but it's not comfortable. It's restrictive and it's limiting. It's limiting my thoughts. It's limiting the way that I want to build my life. And then Saturn and Neptune are, making the aspects to Uranus and Pluto. And they're going to do that for years. At least Neptune will. So here I think that the later degrees of the Pisces energy with Saturn and Neptune is giving us an opportunity to really make karmic choices, almost like looking at the choices that we've been making, okay, and we don't have to go back too far, but okay, last night I got cocktail peanuts. Last time I ate cocktail peanuts, they tasted delicious, but a few days later, I didn't feel so good. So last night I bought more cocktail peanuts and I had this wherewithal that, oh God, I'm going to do something that's not good for me. It's not going to feel good. And I did my best and I did a pretty good job of not eating too many of them. This is awareness of, because things are going on and there's weird things about us that I think we're going to default to old habits of comfort, and how we, wanting to sleep more maybe lately, or wanting to eat foods that are challenging for our bodies, or I know peanuts are good. We're good. I'm going to salty. Because the rough side of Saturn and Neptune is very restrictive and erosive. But at this point, when this master degrees, because Saturn's going to move from 26 to 27 degrees this week, it's, and Neptune is teeing up in 2 weeks to move into Aries, and it's not poking its head back in its home for the next 165 years. And that's going to feel awkward and weird and disruptive and uncertain. I mean, we're taking literally the planet that rules the oceans and we're putting it in fire. and that's going to create some steam. Ooh, lemon meringue pie sounds refreshing. I personally like a key lime pie over lemon meringue. But anyway, so these are the highlights, but these highlights are drifting on and on and on. And as the stellium moves out of Capricorn and goes into Aquarius over the next couple of weeks, Mars will stay in Capricorn a little bit longer. We're going to see people really looking at their futures and what do I really want and what have I been putting up with that just doesn't work for me anymore. So, welcome to a new world, and it really is a new world, and technology will force us into these decisions. So I decided to pull the 12 tarot cards. I used to do that, and I kind of forgot that I did that. And for time's sake, I thought I would just shuffle with the angel cards versus all three decks with each sign. So let's go into our Capricorns. Happy birthday to all of you Capricorns having a birthday this week. And I want to say this stellium the stellium being 3 or more personal planets, and we're looking at Mercury. I'm sorry if I sound repetitive, just in case someone's coming in the room. We've got 4 personal planets. The way you think, Mercury. The way you take action, Mars. The way you identify yourself, the Sun. And the way you value yourself, Venus. All in this concentrated, they do say that any planets that are close to the sun are combust, right? The sun outshines them. So one of the things we might have to be as a tribe careful of is ego triggers this week. Random, weird people being aggressive. I have another cranky neighbor. I don't know where I got all these cranky neighbors from, but this guy, Lucky, and I used to walk by where he lives. I don't know if he owns the property, if he rents. But one side is public sidewalk, and then when you come down the side street, it's grass and a curb. So Lucky and I always walked along, and he peed there, and whatever. Well, out of nowhere, this guy, since I got Lulu, decides that he wants to yell at me from behind. Like, I've never seen his face, or I don't remember his face. He yells from inside his house, and he's just yelling, "Get off my lawn!" And I'm like, "How did we know it's your lawn? This looks like sidewalk space to me." I don't know that this is, and that's my Aries. Because if he would have walked up to me like a nice human being, I would have been like, "Hey, I'll do my best." But people aren't like that right now. Get off my lawn. I know, they're so fucking crazy, pardon my language, because I really am reactionary to, like, if you're aggressive with me, my first go-to is to be aggressive back. And my South Node is being triggered by Neptune and Saturn. And so, like, old habits of bad behavior, I haven't actually acted out on them, but they're there. Did I just pretend I was deaf? No, I don't think so. Well, I might to the guy, but no, I barked back at him. I'm like, "Look, Mr. Crankmeister." I called him the Grumpmeister, Crankmeister. Get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And he's all vinegar. And then I had fantasies about, things I don't need to fantasize about. Oh, yeah, I could pretend I'm deaf, but I don't do that. See, I literally was in a conversation with another neighbor and heard him yell at me from behind, and I just reacted. I didn't say anything. I didn't cuss at him, but I called him a Grumpmeister. And then he was a buzzkill. Like, why can't you just be a friendly neighbor? Who gives a shit? And by the way, this is not like a lawn that is like you're walking up his driveway or you're walking up a walkway and you clearly know that this is someone's house. I don't walk into people's houses and let my dog do their business. Anyway, all right, enough of that nonsense. We're going on and we're doing our Capricorn reading. Well, that's what I did when I called him a Grumpmeister. And I did it. I literally called him an old man. I'm like, "Hey, you old man, quit being such a grumpy old man." Okay, Capricorn, this is kind of funny because this is the wish fulfillment card, the 9 of Cups. Happy birthday, Capricorn. Now I want to offer this. When I look at this and I look at the week ahead, and I see the T-square, your wish fulfilled may not be like, oh, I won the lottery. It may be more like, oh, this annoyance or this stress is been relieved. Let's see where we're going with this. And I want to offer this too, because Capricorn rules history, right? And karma, meaning karma is choices that you've made historically over and over again that kick in a certain vibration within the law of attraction. So when you say, every time I go to Costco, I can never find a parking space, you can be aware that as you're driving to Costco, you're already anticipating that you're not going to get a damn parking space. So if your wish this week is to see your old habits that blocked you, restricted you, made you feel overly responsible to something that no longer seems viable, then that recognition is something to be proud of, especially for Capricorn, because it's so easy for you to fall into doing what is expected of you. And it will feel very uncomfortable to put yourself first sometimes. It also depends on the chart, of course. There can be other dynamics, but just in the most raw sense. Good morning, Lucy. Did I miss it? Wait, I said hi to Pixie, I think. Okay. Our first angel is the angel of abundance, Serena. Then we have Merlina upside down. We have Archangel Raphael. And then we have Mystique. Okay. Good morning, little grasshopper. So nice to see you. All right, Capricorn. I think, too, that Serena is not necessarily about money right now, but about serenity during the process. Okay, the deer is about, often I see it as a deer in the headlights, but it's upside down. This feels good. We have Merlina being joined by the Joy card, but they're both upside down. The spider is upside down, joining Archangel Raphael, and the wasp is joining Mystique. Now that's kind of a weird energy. It's contrary, because the Nine of Cups is saying your wish is fulfilled. This is what I see. I see that this week you will be required to look above the history, the stories that you have with other people, other situations. Like, as this is what I think for Capricorn. You had Pluto going through your first house, completely rebirthing your sense of self and how you feel about things and what you want for yourself. Now, everybody else is still catching up, as well as you are on some level. You're trying to birth this in layers. So right now, I think that the Serenity card and the deer in the headlights, I think this is actually you feeling maybe pretty good, even if somebody else is annoyed by your shift. When you've been doing things for other people over and over and over again, or you've been responsible, or you're the one who would get up and go to the office and open the door on your day off because somebody forgot their keys, and you go, no, I can't do that. I have plans. I'm going to breakfast. It's Sunday morning. This may feel uncomfortable for you because it's very interesting. Merlina oftentimes represents in the deck confusion and the Joy card. But here, this obstacle feels as if Merlina is representing the magic of you having fun and feeling joy. And it's upside down because somewhere somebody is pushing up against old habits with you. In the angel's advice, the spider for me is a relationship card, and there's the potential of a healing here. And I want to offer it this way because oftentimes when we look at the relationships in our life, even when we love people, there's a lack of balance. Thank you, DJ. Somebody's over giving and somebody's over receiving, or there's just, a weird flow, because Mystique is asking you to charge through this stingy energy. Okay. So for your wish to be fulfilled, to make the shift, there's a breaking of ground, right? Where you have to break the habit. You have to walk through other people's reaction of breaking the habit. And then we start to put the balance in. I think that's the way that looks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I want to say this too, because a lot of this may be on the inside. You know, Capricorn, you could be walking through, I want my solar return in this next year to look different when I get on the other side of it. So this could all be a little bit on the inside where you could feel a little stingy with yourself or fear that there'll be some sort of ramification. All right, let's move on to our Aquariuses. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We do have a full new moon next week, 28 degrees of Capricorn. That's going to be interesting. Yep, here we go, Aquarius. Oh, that's a lot. Yeah. If that's first and second house for you, then that's going to have to do with how you value yourself, how you see yourself, and then moving. What's going on in the suburbs outside of New York? Hold on, I need to back up a second. Hold on. Oh, somebody's in England? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, Aquarius, the Wheel of Fortune. But the Wheel of Fortune is upside down. So this would mean something is not moving. Let's see where we're going, which is that could be those group of planets, you know, pulling on Jupiter. Not quite letting the expansion take place. Oh no, little grasshoppers from the Big Apple. All right, our first angel for our Aquarius is Archangel Raphael. The second is Ariel. The third is Shanti. And the final is Indriel. I want to offer this too, because during this time with this transit of Neptune and Saturn coming up on the world axis, this is not just moving into Aries. This is the inception of the wheel. And this is a sort of a collaboration between Saturn and Neptune to work together to give sustainability and substance to that which is creative, musical, from the soul, and in the definition and the redefinition of the self. Because if there is a pause, and it looks as if there could potentially be a pause, it's for some sort of illumination or some sort of experience for Aquarius to be able to root in something. And I think that is their light and their energy. We'll see. Archangel Raphael is being joined by the restriction card, but the restriction card is upside down. So but there's going to be an epiphany. There's going to be some sort of awareness. While this is still saying the wheel's not moving, this restriction card would say you come into some sort of understanding. During last year, when everything was hitting the fan, I felt like I was going through one wave after another. The minute I started to feel like I could get back on track with my work, my videos, something hit me again. And I just had to go, I can't do it. I don't have enough. I don't have it. I had to take the pause. And then after Lulu came, about a month after Lulu came, I started to feel myself again. And now I've been getting back on track. Things are getting a lot busier and I feel more myself. So there's something about Aquarius. This is beginning. You're going to start to feel more yourself, but allowing the inspirations to come in or your genius to pop out is going to take a minute. Ariel's being joined by the cat. This is very interesting because Ariel's all about the connection to, when I say to spirit, I'm not like necessarily thinking I'm making a phone call to a ghost on the other side to get information. I truly believe that the entirety of the soul is inconceivable by the human mind. And that while our soul is encased within this human, not the entirety of it, I believe the majority of it is outside of the physical holding space. So here, I almost take this cat as not independence, not healthy boundaries, but as 9 lives to your intuition. It's as if when the restriction comes up off of Aquarius, the pop of inspiration starts to make you feel like, okay, I get it. I get it. The Shanti is being joined by the stag, but the stag is upside down. Maybe this little bit, let me look at the final card here. Hold on. And Indriel's being joined by Merlin. Merlin represents alchemy, justice, and balance. For my Aquarians, I think this week, if we think about it, I prefer Placidus now, but if we look at it in whole sign, the planetary activity is in your 12th house. The 12th house of Capricorn, which already rules history, Saturn, and rules, the 12th house rules karmic choices. It's the house of self-undoing. So I do think you're going to come into a place where you recognize that the parts of yourself that are co-creating a situation, where not listening to your inner voice has created, when I look at the stag and I see it, I don't think there's a lack of leadership. I think sometimes there's a sense of pride. We're talking about a fixed sign here. So with Aquarius, you might just be unwilling at some point to recognize where you're not listening to your intuition, because Indriel is the light worker and Merlin is bringing in balance when you start to listen to the inner voice versus the outer voice, and that's how the wheel will start to move for my Aquarians. Welcome, Georgia. I love the name Georgia. I started calling Lulu Luna because she's like the moon, man. She has a lot of funny little quirks. And she responds to it. It's so funny. So now I'm just convinced that it's the LU that she responds to. She's over there soaking up some sun. She's like a little reindeer too, I swear. In the morning, she likes to she almost like she wants to leap into the air and take off. All right, we ready for our Pisces? Your card is the Prince of Swords this week. This is kind of interesting because the first thing when I looked at this, I saw those crows, and I heard them, and that's literally what Lulu sees are crows, and she starts to want to fly up there with them. But I would be mindful, Pisces, this week of stingy words, and not necessarily your own, but of others. As that hit me, it was like the prince is got his sword going through those 2 crows, and I feel like potentially you might have to be aware of somebody else's harsh words, but this isn't about you making them feel better. This is about you cutting, how can I say it? Separating yourself from the situation, not trying to make it better, potentially. Hey, Stephen. Here we go with our Pisces. So be mindful of other people's words and take it with a grain of salt, or don't take it at all. I got to tell you, Cece Pups, I really do think she's happy to be here. She does zoomies on my bed at least once a day. And I never quite see her do them, but I can hear her. And then I come back and the pillows are all over the place. And she's just... at night, she just loves to curl up. She just seems very happy. I think she's gained a few pounds too. I have to be mindful. Not that she could have used a few pounds, but I don't want to make her fat. All right, my Pisces. Opal is telling you that you're a child of God and you're being cared for. Celeste is potential shift. Sorry, I got distracted by Caressa. Celeste talks about a shift to a new home or a new place of employment. And it's funny, I almost feel like this is something you might be actually contemplating. Caressa is saying that Caressa's upside down, so we're not coming to the end of a cycle just yet. And then there's Bridget offering, Bridget's upside down and often says to look deeper And I think that this is not about looking deeper at all for Pisces. I think this is actually like putting the dots together somehow. You know, there's a pattern. And as you start to recognize that those that speak harshly to you or are harsh to your communications to them, you know, or not listening, it might be time not necessarily to cut them off, but to sort of put, you know, a wedge or an awareness within your heart about that other person so that you're not so vulnerable to the reaction of it. She's so emotional. I can't even tell you. So I don't know what it is about growing old, but I wake up in the morning and I sneeze like crazy. I don't know why. There's something we can do about it. And I think people need to just relax about the dog peeing on stuff. You know, they just, you know, put rocks down. But when I sneeze, this dog, she could be asleep in the other room. She will come running into the kitchen or wherever I am. And she starts jumping up on me to make sure I'm okay. She's just so funny. There's so many little things. I tell her I'm fine. I'm just sneezing. Nothing bad is happening. She just sneezes, freak her out. All right, Pisces, Opal is being joined by the deer. Now, this is interesting because the deer is straight up this time, and we're talking about gentleness and diplomacy, but not necessarily with someone with harsh words. It's about yourself. Celeste is joining the Baird, but the Baird is upside down. You're going to shift away from the history. This literally feels like, for my Pisces, that if there have been people or situations around you where people have been unconscious and they're just talking to talk like, well, this is just who I am. I can't help it. I think you might emotionally remove yourself. Like they won't even know it. This is the thing about Pisces. You can duck out without anybody realizing it because you duck out in plain sight. Because the way this looks, it looks as if you have some kind of awareness this week that just pops something in your brain. It just says, you know what, this person's always going to be like this. It doesn't matter how nice I am to them or how much I try to help them or cajole them or blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to emotionally neutralize, you know, not be affected and not be, because there's no need to look any deeper into a situation. It's pretty clear. It's been happening over and over again. And that's evidenced by the history card upside down. Because the Baird talks about music and poetry and the enchantment of storytelling. This would be the opposite of that. It would be a story that's going on and on and on, and it's not changing. So there is a very good possibility that this week, you don't know it, but through a conversation or through somebody's communication to you, you're just like, I hope that said something to you. Because I don't know that you'll use your words. Because sometimes words just don't work. It's like, why bang your head against the wall? Okay, here we go. On to our Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Let's see what your tarot card is this week. Oh, the Six of Swords. That's nice. This is sort of a, you know, I can sort of relax. We're moving into smoother waters. We're, you know, the influence that's coming up, okay? Because Chiron going through, I almost feel like Aries has that bookends, because even though we haven't quite moved Saturn and Neptune into Aries, we felt it. We felt it hovering. We can feel the winds of change, the calling of an inner voice that is acting or asking us to act on the inner voice, not the outer voice. Now, when I look at this particular deck, because I always ask Spirit, which deck should I use in the morning? This one is very much those whales get me. Those two whales. Whales represent a soul's intention, you know, and the song of the soul's intention. Because of what right now I feel like it may not feel like smoother waters, but as Aries allows their inner voice, not through anger, but through bravery to carve out the new version of yourself, right? That there'll be this feeling of safety. And this is the weird part, because I definitely feel like some of us are going to feel very relaxed during very unsettling times. And people will be like, you should care about this. You should care about this. This is important. Oh my God. And I don't think that works. So Aries, I really do believe that somehow those of you that have been brave enough to go on the awareness journey will represent more of the peaceful warrior, more of the awareness of what you can be effectual at and what you can't. And being mad about something you can't do anything about is just a waste of energy. It actually burns it. So I feel like, to go back to the whales feel like there's a calling that I'm suddenly, using spirit, using the planets of Saturn, knowing my history, knowing the history of other people, understanding that, there's a reason why we have multiple lives. Some people don't shift. They just can't do it. They're just, the die is too far in the cast and it can't be changed. So that can bring a sense of comfort and a sense of resolution. There's also, I forgot, see the big whale in the sky that's around the moon? This is where this kind of makes me feel that's like really representative of that soul. This is that fork in the road when I don't react the way I used to react, because I realize that if I react this way, it's just the same stuff, just a different day. Saturn and Neptune on your moon 145 club would be really, really, I would think that would be a really hard transit, because so much of your emotional body would come up, and it would come up in a way that would, like, first it would hit how you think, throw you off kilter there, blur the lines. It's not an easy transit, but I have to say, as we hit the third time, because when it hits my south node, I really think that this is going to be an opportunity for me to recalibrate old bad habits, which is why the neighbor barking at me and my reaction versus just being calm and ignoring him, I get to be more conscious of that. Because frankly, I just want to go up to him and say, what did I ever do to you for you to suddenly start targeting me? Leave me alone. But it's probably in the stars that somebody's going to create aggravation for me so that I can manage that aggravation more constructively. So I can move away from the things that, and recognize some people are just the way they are. Okay. That's funny. I know some guys with the last name Dye as well. Are they related to the post-serial empire? Moon, Jupiter, and Chiron in Aries in the 8th house. Well, I want to say this, Jupiter, I don't think Jupiter is so bad in Aries. It can really expand the braver side of Aries. But Jupiter and the moon in Aries and Chiron would be, to me, some kind of discovery of yourself through the moon, your emotional body, Jupiter, your connection to spirit, and the expansion of that through your emotions. And Chiron would be redefining, and you lost your mom. That makes sense. And so the redefining of the self through that dynamic. All right, Aries, our first angel is Daniel, the angel of marriage, also the history and relationships, but it's upside down. We have Layla, which is about spending time in nature, but she's upside down. Bethany is about self-care, but she's upside down, which means that we need to work on these things. And Aster is about reaching for the stars with your dreams and desires. I really don't think this is about dreams and desires. I feel like this is with all the planets in Capricorn squaring the Aries energy, and with the ruler of Aries, Mars, being exalted up there, there can be this very strong feeling of, I almost feel like when Mars is in Capricorn squaring its natural home, it feels like Mars has a coldness to it. Okay, that Mars becomes more. I don't want to even say the greater good. It feels like Mars stands behind the Saturnian energy of the history, the traditions, the rules, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like that could be conflicting, because here what we're looking at is Mars becoming aware of the rules, and instead of warring against them, standing for what Mars believes in. So here, this is the history turned upside down, the history in relationships. Let's see where we're going with this, because I do think this is going to be how you interact with other people. That's Mars's greatest challenge, is that on some level, it can look at everyone as a chess piece to move into, around to get where it needs to go. That's what you do in war. All right. Okay. Daniel is being joined. Daniel's upside down, and then the goblins. This is about your ego. Layla's upside down, is being joined by the Bee card. Bethany is upside down. That's the card, Angel of Self-Care, being joined by the Fire Fairy. And Astera is being joined by the Focus card. Literally, this is Aries having a moment of checking your ego, and where you may have righteous anger, but is it working for you? You may have righteous frustration. You may be going through a situation where you're like, how many times are we going to talk about this? How many times am I going to go around this mulberry bush with you? But the ego is just, if you think about it, Aries is ultimately the ego. It's the identity of self. The sun is exalted in Aries, because spirit is you're not spending any time alone in nature. You're not connecting with a bigger picture of things. You might just be focused in on, because your ruling planet is with all those other planets, work, responsibilities, where I have to be. And that's important. It is, the beginning of the year, getting everything in order for the coming year. But this feels like Spirit saying, whoa, in order to really get that Six of Swords, to move into smoother waters, to feel like things are calming down, you've got to slow down and be aware of your own personal energy, because the self-care angel is upside down, and there is the Fire Fairy. So the Fire Fairy being creative action and optimism. I almost feel like Aries, take a minute, even if you're in your morning shower, to be aware, to declare how you want the day to go, how you want to feel, because Spirit is saying, don't focus on the old things. In order to feel that sense of peace, focusing in on the new things, the things that you're enjoying, the things that you want to do. I started this year with this crazy thought that I could try to record a video every day. There's no way that Teri can do that. Teri got 2 videos recorded last week, and I felt pretty good about that. And this coming week, I want to do 2 more about Saturn, as Saturn makes basically the same transits that Neptune is, and as they go conjunct. And there's a part of me that wants to go back and default to what I've been doing, but I also know that I don't want to chase what I've been doing. I want to be more... I want people to understand more than just spouting sort of like, here's the weather report of the stars. I want people and myself to be able to use the stars and extract the advantage from them. So there's a part of me that has to check what I hear. Well, if you don't do videos every day, if you're going to be successful, that's kind of what might be going on here. Your ego is definitely checked, Aries. Somehow your ego is checked, and it's time to be aware of the old story, and if indeed to even tell it, because I don't really want to be that busy, and I don't want to be that popular. I want to be effectual, and that's what I have to keep reminding myself. So I think this week might remind you in many ways of where are you moving that's going to bring you towards the peace that you want, or peace could be the accolades of others as you create something, but it feels like it has more to do with self-care. All right, on to our Tauruses. Thank you, Lucy. Taurus, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your card this week is the Two of Pentacles, and it's inverted. There's a lack of flow. Let's see where the flow is. You know, I've had issues with authority figures, but it's not because they're authority figures. It's because they're not authority figures. They're just the Three Stooges acting like they know something, and they're trying to tell me that, whether it was my mother, my teachers, and I would just always be the one that said that didn't make sense to me. So I really don't. Tell me, I found a way to turn the commercials off. Are you guys seeing any commercials? Is the stream being interrupted? Because I tried to turn it off. I find authority, no, I always win. Yeah. Good. I turned it off. Good. I finally found the button. You know, you find things in their own timing. Because, okay, Taurus, there's a lack of flow. Let's see where we're going. Mystique says, keep charging ahead. Now, this means that even though there's no flow, this is more about you, emotionally aligning, remembering that to grow something is not about going out into the garden and digging. It is about bringing in the soil and the nutrients and having all the components prepared in order to plant a profitable or a fruitful season. So here, because this could be a lack of bunny flow. We also have the angel Layla, but she's straight up. So this is about connecting with spirit. And Bethany, again, okay. These are my two biggies here. And finally, Serena. This is absolutely about money. Now, Taurus is the sign of insecurity, right? But it's because it rules money I make through my own skills, my own talents, my voice, my opinion. So here, what this looks like is if there's a pause, if there feels like there is a stutter, then you might need to be more flexible as well in the way you're thinking. If you look at the traditional Rider-Waite deck, the character, it looks like he's juggling two pentacles, and he's got one foot in the air and one foot down, and his garb is very colorful. So I think that this is a lack of flexibility, and not to go down the worry train. Mystique is being joined by Merlin. Merlin represents keep moving towards balance, keep moving towards the alchemy, focusing in on what you want. I know it's not always easy, but when you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I want to win the lottery. Oh, everybody's going to tell you you're not going to win the lottery. Then you can see your wobble, and then you say to spirit, hello, I need help. Like, let me win the lottery. Help me or whatever your story is. Because Layla is asking you to spend time receiving. Okay, the queen sits calmly as, her manservant brings her drink, and the lady in waiting tends to her other needs. There is something going on, and I think it has to do with how you perceive things, in the sense of, I got to make sure that everything I need will be here. And, oh no, what if I'm getting too old, or what if I'm too young? Or, it cracks me up. I did a reading for a girl who's barely 30, and she thought she was old the other day. And I was like, damn, girl, if you think you're old now, you don't know nothing about old. So, because there's something here about Taurus going into some sort of story. Bethany is asking you to show self-love, because the love card joined her. And Serena's about money. And then there's the partnership. This whole spread today is about coming into alignment with your resources. It's about not worrying about not having enough as much as it is about thinking the universe will provide for you. And I want to offer it this way because Taurus rules planting and growing. And we know there are perennials and then there are annuals. Annuals grow once a year, perennials bloom endlessly. So I think what Spirit's trying to say is to partner with your serenity about your resources, and things will start to happen. And that's exactly what happened to me. Because I watched all the resources that I had. I had gotten my credit cards down. They were all like zeroed out basically. And I had money in the bank, and then the credit cards went up and the money in the bank went down. And there was so much emotional upheaval for me. And I was just really thinking to myself, I don't know if I can, pull it out. When am I going to get past this moment and get back in the flow? And there was a moment where I had to surrender to the lack of flow and then reconnect to spirit. And when I did that, things start happening. So Taurus, this is one of your Uranian opportunities, is to really start to connect to that, which you cannot see, that which comes from the future. Innovate, reinvent. There's a tequila plant. Is that an aloe vera plant? I don't know isn't it aloe vera they make tequila out of? I don't know what they make tequila out of. Agave. It's agave. Agave? It's some kind of cactus, right? Agave. That's it. I had signs from Mike this last one. It's been, I don't know if any of you are in Southern California, but it's been raining like crazy. And gardenias bloomed, 2 of them over Christmas, right at the plant by my door. And I felt like that was a gift from him. So a lot of weird things are happening right now. All right. Gemini, you have the 8 of Swords upside down. This is actually pretty nice because the 8 of Swords is where your part, there's too many possibilities, there's too many things to think about, and you feel sort of entrapped in this wall. It's almost a feeling of being imprisoned by your brain. This would indicate there's something is going to, the opposite, the options are narrowing on some way, and you're going to get an opportunity to see where you have more power in a situation versus feeling powerless. Tequila is one of the cleanest alcohols. I think there's the least amount of sugar in it. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure. You were at the bar yesterday, and was she sloppy drinking her tequila? Whoops. All right, Gemini, let's see where we're going. I think all of us have, I think being human is really the crazy is normal, and then balanced is, oh, good. I'm glad she was a nice person enjoying her drink. I've been that person. I used to go sit at the bar by myself and eat, but I don't do that anymore since COVID. I don't know why. And now Lulu won't let me go anywhere without her. All right, Gemini. Vanessa is upside down. Vanessa is how you make your decision on faith or fear. We have Archangel Uriel upside down. That's got to do with frustration. We've got Sonia, which is a deceased loved one, watching you on the other sides, but that's in the angel's advice. Your guides are very close by right now. She's Velcro. She really is. I can't get near the front door, and she thinks we're going somewhere. I surrender to her Velcro-ness. I will only go places dogs can go. That's fine. Being human is highly overrated. I agree 100%. And when we figure out that we're not the only game in the universe, we're going to start looking at other civilizations and wonder, maybe I'll incarnate there next time. All right, here we go. Gemini, Vanessa is about making your decisions based on faith or fear, and it was just joined by the birth and rebirth card. Archangel Uriel is upside down as well and being joined by the frog. There's going to be a release of some sort of anger or frustration. Sonia is being joined by the letting go card. And then the raven is joined by Celeste. I literally think that this is like a journey in your mind right now. I think that Gemini, the back and forth of whatever you've been hearing, whatever information you've been getting, wherever you've felt trapped in your thoughts, is you're not going to want to do it anymore. You're going to really look at what you've been hearing, what you've been, are people feeding me faith or fear? I don't want to go back and forth there. So somewhere there's going to be some sort of rebirth. It's almost like, because when Archangel Uriel's upside down, there's frustration. And this would almost feel like not the end of frustration, but moving away from frustration. I'm no longer going to be powerless. I'm going to take my power back. I'm going to start looking, I'm going to take the choices off the table in the sense of other people's opinions, other people's chiming in. You know, if you want to win the lottery, I'm telling you, you go tell anybody, I'm going to win the lottery. And 99 out of 100 people will tell you, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So there's somewhere where you're going to have to, you're going to start drowning out the outside voice. And even if it's your own voice that keeps going back and forth, yes, no, because there feels like an integration of spirit's voice. There's some sort of integration, and I don't even know if I think that's spirit outside yourself. It's like you're starting to listen to the inner part of your voice. It was like, the inner part of your voice is when someone tells you, like I'll give you an example. When I was little, my mother used to say, children are meant to be seen and not heard. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Children are loud and noisy and sticky, and they laugh and they scream. That doesn't make sense. But my mom kept saying it. She kept saying it. So I just didn't argue with her anymore, but I didn't believe her. So I think that there's something about shifting the way you're thinking. I think somewhere you're going to start listening on the inside versus the outside. Or you're going to start exploring what your inner voice is telling you versus what the outer voice is saying. There are so many things going on. You know what's really weird? I noticed, I was looking up at the stars last night, and now I realized I don't necessarily look for stars. I look to see if there is that a satellite? Is that a drone? Like I've already started thinking that the things I see in the sky aren't even stars anymore. They're man-made something. And then, it'll flash and it'll be, I'm like, is that Mars? And then it starts to move. So we're going to see more and more stuff coming up. And I don't know what it is. I assume everything's under surveillance. I didn't give my email I looked at something the other day online. And next thing I know, they were sending me emails. And I'm like, I didn't even, I don't know. I don't want to think about that too much. It kind of creeps me out. I don't know, as much as I know the stars in this chart, when I look at them in the sky, I'm never quite sure. The only one I can ever identify really is Mars. Thank you, Lucy. All right, let's go on to our Cancers. The worries lifting. That's interesting. I kind of, I find that hard to believe. Let's see. I think I see it, but then I doubt myself. And I don't have any sort of computer that I can go up and take a picture and see if I'm right. Oop. I love the Catalina. It's so clear because there have been a lot of winds here. And the Catalina is so clear right now. It looks beautiful to look out in the ocean and see that island. I also think you probably, now living in Hawaii, you have a really good view. All right, Cancer. Serena is our first angel. Then we have Crystal, but she's upside down. Then we have Oceana. And we have Azure. All righty. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Worry is a form of prayer that doesn't serve you. It puts your attention and your focus into a situation that you don't want to experience. What are you doing over there, girlfriend? All right, Cancer. Serena is being joined by the Baird. Crystal's being joined, Crystal's upside down, by Merlin. Oceana's being joined by the Deer. And Azure is being joined by the Perception card. The Nine of Swords is a card of great worry. You know, the character is focused on the future, on the potentials. Nothing in the card is in and of itself threatening. And, you know, Cancer has that little bit of, you know, it rules history. It rules family traditions, you know, and the house itself is being pummeled by an opposition in Capricorn, right? And if we go by whole sign, that's in the 7th house of peace and harmony, because Spirit is literally asking you to tell a new story, okay? The Baird, you know, he looks like he's dancing down the lane. Serena's about abundance, about receiving. And I think that this is about telling a new story. That was then, this is now. Because you're struggling for faith, you know, you're struggling on some level to go, you're going back and forth. I think this Nine of Swords is an offering of end of worry versus actually the end of worry, because Merlin is offering balance. I don't think it's alchemy, and I don't think it's justice. I think that there's fear, and then there's your soul going back and forth on some level. You know, Jupiter, we always think of Jupiter as expanding things, of making things so awesome. But Jupiter has that co-ruling Pisces, so it co-rules the transcendence of the soul through self-undoing, okay? By traveling to other realms in your mind, visions, vision quests, because literally Azure is saying your desired outcome will happen when you shift your perception. The worry will lift. It's funny when I go into this, I'm asking, like, what's the primary worry? What is Cancer worried about? And it just feels like the security of the future. You know, and if indeed for some reason, you know, you're finding media inflaming you or worrying you, do your best to, you know, obviously we want to be informed, we want to make good decisions, but there's also an overload of information that can just feel toxic, you know, just feels like it's too much. All right, onward and upward to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. This week you'll have Venus going into your 7th house. Should kick up the dust a little bit. If there's been dust in your 7th house. Let's see what your card is this week. Oh, the Emperor. This is very good. First of all, you're exalted in the Emperor's territory, right? Your sun is exalted. The Emperor rules Aries. So there's going to be some sort of venture. Now I can't help but focus on the stallions behind him. You know, and it almost feels like when I look at this card, you know, the Emperor is not indecisive usually. Maybe if it was upside down, we see that sun and the moon. There's some sort of coming together of opposites, or coming together of two sides of yourself, or coming to into an awareness of two things that you want. All right, Leo, let's see where this is. There's a dragon that sits beneath this emperor, which it almost looks like a dragon cloak. Let's see where we're going. All right, Leo, we have Grace and Antoinette, but they're upside down. This is the angel of seeing other people's point of view. We have Francesca, which is about negativity. What are you focusing on? Serena is upside down here. And then Oceana is upside down here. Okay. It's funny how the stories change as the cards come out. Grace and Antoinette is the lack of seeing things from someone else's point of view. It is being joined by the truth, and that is upside down. Okay, God bless Leo this week. We have the butterfly joining the upside down Francesca. We have Merlin again showing up in relation to the upside down Serena, and then we have the spider joining Oceana, and Oceana's upside down. I'm going to say this lovingly to you, Leo. There could be the potential that you are lacking empathy or awareness of how your interactions are going with other people. Grace and Antoinette and the truth being upside down means there's no truth and no awareness in how I'm relating to another person, or how I'm landing on another person, or how they're responding to me. Francesca being upside down talks about visualizing, negativity. So this would be, you're not visualizing negativity, but you might also not be seeing potentially the beauty of a situation, or the blossoming of a situation, or something is changing or growing in some way. And when I say growing, I'm thinking of the butterfly that's encased in the cocoon, and it's growing before it comes out, because there is definitely a lack of serenity and a need for balance of some kind. And I do think that potentially with the Emperor and this, first position of Grace and Antoinette and the truth being upside down, and then we have this Oceana upside down, and the spider is my partnership card. There's something about you may be so focused on either trying to get a job done, get a goal met, that you're not really aware of the potential. You could I'm just going to say it. You could inadvertently be collaborating with somebody, and you're on a deadline, and you're like, this needs to get done, and you're just not putting the charm in this week. You're not massaging the situation, and maybe that is key to getting what you need to do done. I have no idea if that passed. I don't even know what that is. Eric versus Danikin. I don't even know what that is. Is that a United States issue, a political issue? So I want to say this for Leo. You might be have to be more aware of others, and how your communications, your way of being, how it's landing on them. And it may not feel like a big deal to you, but the other party may be more sensitive to your way of being than you realize. I don't often know that, like, I'm a very passionate person, and when I get excited, or when I get a little, passionate, I can sometimes almost appear mad or angry, because my voice gets a little bit louder, and I get more, I think you guys have seen me do this. And I don't ever think I'm being too much, but it might be. So that's my little thing for Leo. Be mindful. All right, let's go into our Virgos. Ooh, we got an upside down tower. Oh, on extra. Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about aliens. Those names are now familiar to me. I don't know what the past is, but I think I've seen them on TV. You meant extraterrestrial, I'm assuming small extraterrestrial origins. All right. So Virgo, look at that tower upside down. That's interesting. The tower is like Uranus for me. There's epiphanies, there's lightning strikes, there's, rebelling against a system. Now this is the opposite of that. This could be a lack of innovation, a lack of rebellion, and when we look at the South Node going through Virgo, there could be this feeling of, especially since we're kind of looking at in whole sign, meaning we're addressing Virgo first house here, not Virgo sun. There could be something going on with you not allowing the South Node to do what it needs to do, which would be to dissolve the perfectionism, the fine-tooth comb, the fixing other people, the lack of focus on self. Let's see where we're going. It's a lighter energy. The tower is usually considered very startling and, uncomfortable. So this could be something that's in that vein, but not quite with the intensity that it would be if it was upright. Teresa is upside down. So this is about not worrying about other people. So be taking care of the self. Celeste is a new shift to a new home or a new place of employment. Akasha is the spiritual teacher, but it's upside down. And Adriana is saying that she's leading you, but it's upside down. We also know that in the Virgo energy, we're looking at the opposition between Saturn and Neptune. And at these late degrees, especially Neptune at that anaretic degree, there's an opposition, there's a crisis of some kind. And that could be a crisis of faith for you because you're so busy taking care of others, worrying about others, doing, processing your day, getting what needs to be done. And this would indicate there needs to be a shift in the way you're thinking. Teresa's being joined by Merlin. Alchemy, justice, and balance needs to be balanced for Virgo in how you're treating, worrying about other people. This is not selfishness. This is self-care so that you can actually be there for others. Celeste talks about a new home or a new place of employment. I often tell you can put my body anywhere, but think a certain way. You've got to make the shift. You've got to choose to shift the way you're thinking. You've got to make a bit of a conscious awareness. It doesn't have to effort because spirit is trying to teach you something or bring awareness to you. Akasha's upside down in the angel's advice, and there it is, the wind fairy. Virgo is technically ruled by Mercury, but it's Mercury. It's not like Gemini. Gemini is like, I always picture it like when it's teaching or giving information, there's a sense of joy with it. There's a sense of, I'm good at this and I want to do this. When I go to Virgo, I do this like whether I like it or not. This is how the process is. This is where the rules of engagement are. This is how I analyze things. This is how I know them. You're not learning about how your mind may not be giving you the true. It's almost like there's a fight between your brain and your insides. Your insides going, no, I don't know if that's right, but that's how they do it. That's how we should do it. Yes, it is very selfish not to take care of yourself at this time because you're trying to be led somewhere, Virgo, but you're not going easily. There's the forgiveness card. And I think part of that is not forgiving God, but forgiving, not necessarily forgiveness, an integration. I don't believe in forgiveness. I'm an Aries rising and a Taurus moon. I'm very, very stubborn. When you hurt me and you don't apologize, I never forget. I'm like an elephant. And I will back up, and I'll be nice, but I'll back up. So here, I think that there's the potential for something that's been unsettling, that's come into your sphere, probably South Node related, something is being pushed out, but there's a need for balance between others and self, between, how you, and not just taking care of yourself physically, but mentally, giving yourself a mental break. And I think that's where the forgiveness card becomes an integration of, I'm not in this alone. And now it's time for me to invest in the magic that is my life, the magic that is me beyond the physical experience. So this is where, as a human, I say, Spirit, I don't have any practice at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at faith. So will you help me? Will you give me an experience to anchor me in, please? Okay. So this could be a little bit of a fight in your head this week. And not a fight you're not expecting, but a fight you almost are expecting. Okay, here we go. On to our Libras, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. And your card is the Four of Swords. Well, it might be the old fight is still there. It may not be a new fight. It might be an old fight, The Four of Swords is a very interesting card for Libra because it's a card where the knight has been through the wars and now he's come back to rest and rejuvenate. And it looks in the traditional Rider-Waite deck like he's laying on a coffin. And underneath that coffin, there's two people warring and there's a sword. I think what Spirit is trying to say in this deck is we see the trout, which offers bounty, the bears offer protection, and the swords hold space for that protection. So to me, Libra is starting to recognize somewhere giving myself a rest, giving myself, knowing that all my needs will be provided for, whatever that case may be. Let's look and see. Again, we're talking about the Libra energy squares the Capricorn energy. So there could be, there could be things and people around you that are talking about, whenever I talk to any of my friends, they always like to mention that Social Security isn't going to be around in 4 years. We're all going to die. All the money we put in is gone. And, I don't want to hear any of that. I don't know if it's true or not true, but I'm not going there with them. And so I do think, Libra, you might have to give yourself a rest from things that you feel are disturbing your peace and harmony. There's Indriel, the light worker. There's Isaiah saying it's time to give birth to new ideas. There's Ariel, the spirit's communication. And there's Archangel Raphael offering a healing. All right. Indriel's being joined by the communications card. Isaiah's being joined by the butterfly. Ariel's being joined by the truth. And Archangel Raphael's being joined by the restriction card. It's definitely a time of rest, and meaning not necessarily physical rest. I feel like it's mental rest. I feel like, the idea that Indriel in the communications card is saying, Libra, remember to stay close to your inspirations, stay close to the things in your heart that versus what you're hearing in the outside world. The Libra energy houses two important points. It houses the fixed star Spica, which is the ability to speak to the angelic realm. And then there is the supergalactic center, where you recognize that you are part of source energy. You are part of the creation. You can draw things to you. So I really think that this rest card is about rest of worry, rest of the mind, rest of that you're being protected. There will be plenty of bounty while you hibernate for some reason, because we're not giving birth. We're not birthing the child yet. We are in a gestation period of bringing more beauty into your life. And I don't mean beauty, physical beauty, or beauty of the face. I mean beauty in the sense of harmony. Everything will be fine. Everything will be all right. that I'm a child of God. I feel God's presence. I feel Spirit's presence. I feel my own soul's path. And I did not choose to walk a path of vulnerability in a way where I'm vulnerable to the darkness that's happening right now. Because I think on some level, the restriction card here isn't really restriction. It's about really stopping and connecting with what makes you feel. When we look at Archangel Raphael, it talks about physical changes, but I don't think these are physical changes in the sense of my body is sick and now it's well. I feel like these are physical changes that are happening around us. People are shifting, relationships are shifting. And the more I stay connected to a deeper truth, the more I don't go necessarily into battle. Now, Libra's not known to go into battle, but Libra is known to fight for fairness, to fight for balance. And if somebody's super out of balance, an out of balance Libra will do what they can to support that person just to keep things calm. I don't want to have conflict. So here, I think that without your connection to spirit, without the rest, you yourself will feel a certain restriction to your peace of mind. This is all about communicating to spirit. And when I do that, thank you, Spirit, for bringing me all the resources I need to feel safe in this human experience. Thank you for making me, feel healthy in my connections with others. Whatever you desire. Thank you for bringing me that new job where people appreciate me. I think Libra can be quite crazy if you want to know the truth. I know some very, very crazy Libras. My mother being the craziest of them all. But if you think about it, Libra houses, wherever the sun is, Mercury is, 28 degrees away. Venus is 48, I think, at most. So Libra will have Mercury either in Scorpio, Virgo, or Libra. If it's in Scorpio, it can make a Libra I have my Scorpio my Mercury in Scorpio. She scares me sometimes. And I can be very stingy. People don't expect that from, hold on a second. Lulu, come here. Come here. Thank you. Please don't bark. You sound like such a big dog when you bark. It scares me. Libras need balance. I think that's very true. She's a big girl. All right. On to our Scorpios. Oh, what I was saying is just because you're a Libra, people think Libra's nicey nice, but Libra with Venus, or I have Venus in Virgo, okay? So I can be super picky and super perfectionist in certain things. And happens to be my fifth house in Placidus. So that's about romance. And people used to always tell me I'm too picky. And then the Scorpio part of me with Mercury there can be, I can be stingy with my words if I'm not careful. So I can be very not Libra-like. It's so important to see how the whole chart plays out. But let's now go to our Scorpios, because you've been growing something, Scorpio. Here's that 7 of Pentacles. It's a time to contemplate whether you want to continue to grow it or whether it's time for harvest. What are we going to do? Lulu's funny. She's very, when the doors open and she can see what's going on, she's less likely to bark. When she can't see what's going on, she defaults. And this is where I start to believe that DNA test, because her strongest is the poodle, which is the protector. And then her chihuahua is the warrior. All right, here we go. Whoop. All right, Scorpio. Celeste is upside down. So we are somehow thwarting a happy move. We haven't decided what we're going to do yet. Ray is saying to connect with spirit. Grace and Antoinette is asking you to look at the full picture. And Azure is saying that it's not time to make a move. You need to think long term. Think about, whatever you are contemplating with what, like whether it's, oh, should I stay in this relationship? Shouldn't I? Should I stay in this home? Should I stay in this job? Should I stay in this friendship? Should I stay in my isolation? Whatever you've been nurturing, it needs to have a zhuzh, a zhuzh. She is a grand mix. We didn't even talk about the Pekingese and the frickin' Cocker Spaniel and the Shih Tzu in her. She is a good old mix. She's a mutt for sure. Okay, the High Priestess is joining Celeste. Ray is joining, the Forgiveness card is joining Ray. The Queen is joining Grace and Antoinette. And the Burden card is upside down. Okay, God bless the fixed signs. Scorpio, this is what I want to say. You have that square to Pluto, right? Pluto in the early degrees of Aquarius is squaring both Taurus and Scorpio. Somewhere, Spirit is asking you to be aware of your mind versus your intuition versus your inner voice versus your discernment. Because it almost looks as if you're stuck on a certain way of thinking about something, about, you might be a little bit stubborn about what you've been growing, because Spirit is asking for connection. There's an answer in that connection. Something that you want is being thwarted. It's not being able to go to the next level of growth. And it might be how you're going about it. Because the Queen in the Angel's Advice is looking for ease. Okay. And with Grace and Antoinette in the Angel's Advice, I think they're literally asking you to look at this situation from Spirit's point of view. The High Priestess is very much representing Spirit's point of view. Ray is representing connecting with Spirit, where your power is. And in the final position, a burden is lifted, but the outcome isn't here. So what I think is that what Spirit's trying to say for Scorpio is evaluate the outcome you're looking for, because there might be something greater or grander in the journey, or you're missing something about the outcome. I used to say all the time when I first started working for myself, I just want money, oh, money, 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 that'll solve all my problems. But then I realized that money wasn't what I wanted. I wanted time, and then the money that I needed to enjoy the time. And in that recalibration, I felt more power to live my life. Because this looks almost like you have one goal, but you're missing the journey of it. And I think you want the journey to be of more ease or more joy. And that needs to be contemplated somehow. So I don't think it's a big week for movement. Okay. You think the Pomeranian might make her a little skitsy, that part of her? It could. I don't know. She's a grand mix of all sorts of things. We'll have to see. Moral, that's such a, when we're walking through moral choices, that's where it really kind of becomes a landmine field, because people's morals are so different. Lulu, I think all small dogs are actually, they have, short man's complex. Today, Lulu, there's a Staffy, those are those short, stocky pits. And it was up on its balcony, and she just was like, I'm going to take that dog on. And I'm like, knife to a gunfight, girl. All right, we ready for our Sagittarius as we're on our last sign? It is like, I just think there's a big dog inside of everybody and a small dog. The small dogs, the big dogs have a small dog inside of them, and the small dogs have a big dog inside of them. All right, 5 of Swords, but it's upside down. This is kind of interesting for Sagittarius, because the 5 of Swords is a very challenging card of contempt. It's where you win, but you don't win. And here, this would look like there's no contempt, but there's no win. Let's see where we're going with this. Capricorn is your second house. The stellium is in the house of your skills, of working hard. This time it's upside down, so it's a little bit easier to work with when it's upside down. And by the way, while I'm shuffling, anybody see the new season of Traders on Peacock? Oh my gosh, I was so excited. It started on Thursday, and when I went to look to see that it had 3 episodes, and I literally waited till last night. I made a big old, well, not a big old, I made dinner, I poured a glass of wine, and I enjoyed 3 hours of Traders. It was great. Very fun. All right, here we go. Sagittarius, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your first angels is Fiona. Now that you ask God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. Rosetta is the gift of teaching and working with children. Adriana is trying to lead you, and there's children in that picture. And then Layla is about spending time in nature. All right. It's kind of not making sense yet. It was a nice treat for myself. I got all my work done, and then I went underground. Like, nobody called me, nobody talked to me, I'm not here. And I just love to make murder and mayhem. It's so fun. They're actually advertised for, they're doing the next season is going to be regular people like us. So I thought, oh, it'd be so fun, but I can't leave the dog. Fiona, and go to Scotland for 2 weeks. Maybe I could leave the dog. The spider is joining Fiona. Rosetta's being joined by the owl. Adriana's being joined by the cow. And the horse is joining Layla. This is interesting to me for Sagittarius because I almost, when I look at the Five of Swords upside down, I wonder if there's something that you have wanted to endeavor and you haven't been able to quite get it off the ground. And now is a time when it could potentially start. And I want to offer it this way because this would mean that the Five of Swords is saying that up until now, if you get what you want, there would be an outside resistance to it where, you know, outside forces would be like, great, good, go do your thing. But then they're not really happy with you. Now that's lifted. With the Five of Swords being upside down, there would be there would be no contempt. There would be more cooperation. Fiona is saying now that you ask God and the angels for help, be willing to open up and network, okay? To get out there and stretch yourself. Rosetta and the owl are here. This is an opportunity. I really think Rosetta is about teaching or sharing your information. You know, Sagittarius is a teacher. And then the owl is here. And I almost feel like the owl is representing sight. You know, it's not representing I'm wise or I'm deceptive. It's representing the potentials of both, or how you would perceive the good news and the bad news of opening yourself up to something bigger and more expansive for you. Because Adriana is saying that she's trying to lead you into a place where you're feeling, you know, it's, when I look at this, I'm not looking at abundance. There's the nourishment is coming. It's almost like Sagittarius has something to share with others or something to help teach others. And now that you've asked to open up that space, be willing to open it up, and don't be afraid of the audience, you know, being pissed off or angry or whatever. Everybody's got an opinion. You know, you can't really get in the game unless somebody's giving you a thumbs down, because I think this is about movement. I think this horse is coming across as Sagittarian to me. Layla is like, literally, it feels like I'm contemplating how I would birth myself into a new place or into a more expansive place. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a job. It might just be willing to share yourself, your inner thoughts, what you've been contemplating, and opening yourself up to that. it feels almost like Spirit is giving Sagittarius a green light. You know, it's not saying that things are going to work out a certain way. It's saying when you open up to your inspired ideas, you know, everything has its good news and its bad news, but there is an opportunity for you to feel not only a sense of nourishment and like you're being provided for through Spirit, but also that you can help others provide. You know, that's funny that you say that the Sagittarius energy rules the color yellow and orange. And so Sagittarius rules jobs that have to do with large yellow construction vehicles, like, what do they call them? Excavators and I don't know. They're steel products. But this is saying to Sagittarius, you have an opportunity to move forward in what you want without as much contention or much resistance as you might potentially think. And now it's time to engage Spirit into your bigger version of yourself and take those inspirations and start to move them forward. Meaning, oh, I think I'll do da-da-da. I got this idea. And if it sounds fun and it sounds exciting to you, move it forward. Okay. Oh dear, those, yeah, you don't want to do that. The going through yellow flash, that sounds like something a teenager would do. I can make it across those train tracks. Yeah, I bet. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. And it was so great to see Small Wildflowers in the room. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We'll be back next week, me and all my personalities. Moving forward, I'm going to be putting out a video this week about Saturn at 29 degrees of Neptune of Pisces. This is so, these last few weeks, these next few weeks, this next month or so, month and a half, I think February through March, maybe even a little bit into April. It's going to be very, very, I feel the fork in the road. I feel like, you know, I'm either going to start to build Saturn on the positive parts of my story and connect with Spirit in every way. Like Spirit is my Thelma to my Louise, you know, and that connection feels so fruitful for moving forward. And I think that the outside world is going to feel that aneretic degree, and it's going to ripple into our personal lives in a way that could potentially stoke fear or obsession for security. But at the same time, those of us that are standing with intention and putting that intention verbally and with emotional, you know, oomph behind it will experience something very different. So, well, you're here very karmically to stretch for something. If you put that, if you have a south node at 29 degrees, you know, and also the nodes move backwards. So I think that's very interesting. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodbye and good night for today. I'm going to go find me something to eat. I'm hungry. And I love you all. And I pray for you every night for your peace of mind. And that no matter what you're walking through, you can see the divinity through it. And I will see you next week, everybody. So peace out.